I am drinking beer, so I might have to. Okay, we're live.
Hello, everybody. We are, well, you can talk because we're at 0 right now, so we're waiting for people to pop on.
Right.
Good evening. Happy Wine Down Wednesday, where neither Felix nor I are drinking wine.
Oh.
Tonight was a Bailey's night for me, and I have my new, sustainable metal straw with a silicone tip. So I'm good for the environment right now. If you're popping on, please leave us a comment. Hey, Joseph John, you're here. Welcome. Good night. And so you're drinking beer. I'm drinking Bailey's. What kind of beer are you drinking? Felix.
Oh, I thought you were talking to. I thought you were talking to
No,
someone.
he didn't say he was drinking beer.
I'm actually drinking my favorite beer, and I just got it today. The Dogfish 90-minute IPA. It's really good. It's
Yum.
really, really good. Yeah.
I don't know why I said yum. I don't really like beer.
No, this one is good.
Okay, I'll have to try it.
Yeah, I'm not like crazy about beer either, but this one is like, it's next level. It's good stuff.
I believe you. Maybe you should bring me some. So, anyway, good evening, everybody. Welcome. Ooh, Joseph is drinking a single malt.
Ooh, that's fancy.
Who else is popping on? Hello, good evening, everybody. Please leave a comment, say hello so that we know that you're here. We can see your comments on here, but we can't see when you pop on unless you say hi. So for those of you who are new here, welcome. Tonight is Wine Down Wednesday, where Felix and I get into a self-love and quarantine conversation every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. That's United States time. Oh my God, Erica is coming through with a hot toddy. All right, well, I guess this week wine was not going to cut it because everyone is not doing wine tonight. No. And what a perfect time. We're talking about self-love tonight. Oh yeah, I wasn't done with the introduction. So
yeah.
Every Wednesday we're here, Wine Down Wednesday. We talk about different topics. We've talked about spirituality. We've talked about communication, dating, relationships, how to attract love, trust, abundance. We've talked about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And tonight we are going back to our roots and talking about self-love
and quarantine.
Self-love and quarantine. So when I say self-love and quarantine, like what comes up for you, Felix? Because I know you, well, of course, I'm always excited to talk about self-love. Everything I talk about is self-love. But I really felt the extra excitement from you to talk about that tonight. So tell us why you were so excited about this topic.
And I think so. Let's be real. Like we're having a tough moment, and we're spending a lot of time with ourselves. I'm gonna speak personally. I've been spending a lot of time with myself, and I can say that in contrast to the first few weeks, oh my God, like I can say like I've experienced a transformation of my own just by being aware of the things I do and how I spend time. I just got to say, like, Mondays are tough for me. Like Mondays are super tough, and I'm becoming aware of it because I usually have this expectation of myself on Mondays to like start the week off right. And it gets to the point where I become that just, it burns me out. Like it burns me out early and I can't do anything. So when I think about self-love in quarantine, I don't even know, like this is something that we can't control, right? So in a sense, we're staying home in order to, like, I'm not staying home for someone, for me, right? I know that I'm like healthy enough. Really, I'm staying home because I can be a carrier and I can pass it down to someone else. So as a civic duty, but I'm doing it, to not spread it, to adhere to the rules. And so, with that said, there's just time is spent differently now. And I know, like, for my first 2 weeks, I just, like, I allowed myself to do whatever I wanted to. And um, it wasn't the experience wasn't good. It didn't feel good. It was murky. It wasn't self-loving.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm excited now because I'm just experiencing so many wins from actually looking deeper to what I want and becoming still and
Yeah.
doing these practices and practicing these habits and having them become stronger. I'm experiencing a change in my world, even though, like, I'm home most of the time. I'm experiencing changes in so many different areas in my life because of it.
And that's incredible. That's an incredible point because so tonight the topic is self-love, and I'm just going to show this comment here from Jeremy. I used to have so much anxiety being with myself, and now I've let that go.
It's awesome.
So what I hear you saying, and I agree. This COVID-19, this pandemic has forced us to be with ourselves in a way. Like, even if you live with other people, even if you have kids or spouses or significant others or family members that you live with, or if you live alone, this global pandemic has given us an opportunity, if you want to call it that, to really be with ourselves. And I even say that even if you do live with other people, because I believe that the people in your life are often a reflection of who you are, right? Not just the people, but the things in our life are a reflection of who we are. So one example for that is, like, when I've got a lot going on in my mind, or when I'm like really stressed, or when I've got a lot on my plate and I feel overwhelmed, my room, my apartment starts to reflect that, and it
Yeah,
gets messy, and
yeah,
like papers pile up, clothes pile up, things pile up, because my outer world is reflecting the inner pile up, right?
yeah,
um, when I was going through a time in my life where I was being unavailable to myself, meaning I wouldn't sit with myself or be with myself, and I was always seeking external validation or external stimulus or whatever, I often attracted friends and romantic prospects who were unavailable for me. So I really am a firm believer that our outer world, including the people in it, reflect what's going on in our inner world, right? And so, yeah, I think talking about self-love is really important, because this quarantine, this COVID-19, this pandemic, this shelter in place, or whatever you want to call it, is like really just showing us in our faces where we're at on self-love. Like, if we
yeah,
were to rate our self-love on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is like, I absolutely hate myself, and a 10 is like, I love myself all the time. I say positive things about myself all the time. Everything is perfect. Everything is great. Where would you land on that scale? And I love that idea of a scale, because I think if I were to ask someone, do you love yourself? I think most people, or a lot of people, I'll say, would be like, yeah, of course I do. Because
right,
it's like we're supposed to. Like,
right,
what does it look like to be like, no, I hate myself? What does it look like to be with the fact that there's so many things about yourself that you don't like? And so I find a lot of times when I ask people certain questions, they're like, of course I love myself. Of course I love myself. But then their actions, their thoughts, their outer world doesn't reflect that.
yeah,
And so this quarantine has, like, especially for people who live alone, and I was alone, living alone pretty much for like the first 3/4 of the quarantine so far. I don't know if I can say 3/4 because we don't know how long it's going to be, but for the first like 2 months of it. And it
mm-hmm,
was like, I have to face myself. And I feel like, you're going through something really similar. And so, yeah, like, what have you learned about self-love through your self-love, right? And I'm asking this to the audience, to those of you watching, but I'm also asking you, Felix, because you're right here talking to me. But like, what
Mm-hmm.
have you learned about your self-love in the last, 3 months now that we're like in quarantine?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've so yeah, the question of, and I'm gonna get into the answer of that, but the question of like, do you love yourself? Yeah, most people at some basic level, you understand that you love you. Of course, you're gonna choose to love yourself, but I think the question is, are you loving yourself, right?
Mhm.
And it's not like one of those things that it's like one and done. It's a daily practice. That's what I've learned. That I can feel good, but that feeling doesn't. It's not long lasting. I must continue the habit. That way I can sustain it.
Yeah.
It's not something like, so on Monday, as I said, like I was definitely on. I like to say that life happens in waves and revolutions, right? So there's sound waves, there's light waves, and then there's also revolutions, which are habits. So
Mhm.
I found myself in a down wave where I felt like I was being hard on myself, that I was um, expecting things from myself that I didn't even feel like doing. Right. So we kind of like, oh, I have to work. Right. And that's like you get into your laptop or your computer, you sit at your desk and you don't want to do it.
Mhm.
So what I've learned is that if I don't want to do it, there I need to check in on that, and I need to resolve that before I can work. Right.
Yeah.
Because I have the luxury to do that. Right. So I'm privileged to do that, so I acknowledge that too. Right. So some people don't have that, but even if you feel like you don't, right? So if you're someone that works back to back 6 8 hours, whatever it is so important every hour to every 90 minutes to check in. Right. Do you need to stretch? Do you need some water? Right. So because you're not a workhorse, and I
Yeah.
mean, even workhorses shouldn't be workhorses, but that's another conversation.
Yeah.
um that's what I learned, right? So Monday was, I was on a down. Tuesday I was on level, and today I'm just like blasting off.
Yeah.
So, and that's because I was aware that my needs weren't met, and I took care of it, and now it's reflecting this, right? Gratitude, right? So a lot of us want to be like, but I feel like shit, but I want to be grateful. Like I want to, like, you can't just will yourself
Yeah.
into, right? You can't just will yourself into feeling better. No, you must address your needs.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
you must be clear about it, because if you're not clear about your needs, then how are you or someone else going to meet them?
Yeah. No, and I love that you have the image of like the waves, and like how you're saying Monday was a down, Tuesday
Mhm.
was like level, and now Wednesday is a high. Um,
Yeah.
so the reason why, my particular brand of self-love and what I started calling it is courageous self-love. Courageous self-love, that's the name of my healing circles, that's the name of my
Mm,
podcast, that's the name of my blog. And people ask, like, what does courageous self-love mean?
mm,
And I say, like, self-love that I teach, the self-love that I do, the self-love that I work with my clients, it's not like I love myself, I wear a t-shirt that says I love myself, and I'm going to go to the spa and get my nails done, because like you said, it's not a one and done. I
yep.
teach people self-love lifestyle, self-love mastery,
Me too. Yeah.
courageous self-love, where
Yeah.
courageous self-love is, are you courageous enough? Are you willing to love yourself when you're feeling like shit? Do
Right.
you love yourself on the down days and the middle days and the highs? It's like, if we only love ourselves when we're being grateful, but we don't love ourselves when we're being ungrateful, then that's not love,
Yeah.
or that's not full, complete, unconditional love. So that's not courageous self-love, as I call it, right? If I only love myself when I'm being bubbly and outgoing and friendly, and I don't love myself when I'm feeling bitchy and introverted and I want to isolate, then that's not complete self-love. And I think with this quarantine, with needing to stay in place in a on a scale far longer than we're used to, we can't go out and do those I read in a book, they call it short-term energy relieving behaviors. And so it's basically
Ooh.
like those little things like eating the cookie to get the sugar high, or
You know,
getting, what?
I'm smiling like this because I know, like, yeah, like what you said is like it's so conditional to love yourself when you're good. Like,
Yeah.
it's like you love your kids when they're good. Like you gotta accept everything. So I'm smiling and laughing because I ate a whole pizza yesterday, and I had like cinnamon. Like I was like I'm gonna like beast out, and I had like cinnamon sticks too with like icing, everything. I was like I just went in yesterday. I was good.
And did
I
you
was
love
like
yourself
I
through?
loved it. I was proud.
And I think what I just really want to say, that's so powerful to hear you say that, because people, like, especially people that have been watching our Wind Down Wednesdays for a while, they know you're in the health and
Yep.
fitness and wellness industry, and they know
Yep.
that you're a health and wellness coach. And so
Yep.
to hear you say that is so empowering, at least for me, and I'm sure for like the people who love to work with you, because it's like, I don't want to work with someone who is only going to love me and love themselves when they're perfect, or whatever that means, or when they're productive, right? Like, I
Right.
trust people more when they love themselves when they're down. I trust people more when they can admit the shitty parts of themselves. I trust people. Actually, I was watching someone's Instagram story the other day. I trust people more when they can say, I don't know. I
Mm.
trust people more, like, because it's a more holistic, unconditional love, and it's like loving all parts of you and others. And I trust those people more because it's like, you're going to also accept me when I'm not perfect, right? And I think
Right.
we're so conditioned to, it's too easy to feel grateful when you're on a high. It's too easy
It's
to love yourself when you're the perfect size or the perfect weight. It's too easy to love yourself when you have
yeah.
a perfect boyfriend or whatever. I want, like, that's why it's courageous self-love. Can you
Mm.
love yourself on your shittiest days? Can you love yourself when you're really emotional and crying? Can you love yourself when you're being kind of a dick?
Yeah.
um,
Right.
yeah,
Because and I feel like that's what gives you access to be like, you know what? I was being kind of a dick there, right? Because unless if you don't have that level of acceptance, you can't really be like, you can't really apologize for something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I have. Does that make sense? Like
yeah.
if
Or
I'm
you apologize for something, and you'll also stop being like a victim about it, because I think that's the other
right,
side, when we just want to be like blind to stuff, and it's just like, well, I did that because they were being like that,
like
and it's like,
maybe I'm
well,
being a bit of a dick. Like
yeah.
we can be assholes sometimes. Like that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was kind of snappy. You know what I'm like?
It reminds
I
me of people are like, how we're supposed to think all babies are cute, but sometimes it's like,
like
my baby is not cute. Or like, I'll be the one that says the truth. Like, because for me, truth is one of my values, right? Truth is like honesty. And of course, I'll always seek to be kind. But sometimes I'll say things and people will be like, yo, Amelia, you're messed up. And I'm like, dude, everyone was thinking it. I'm just like, I'm just telling the truth. Your baby's not that cute, and I love you anyway.
and that's cool because like there's potential, right? Like there's
No, I
potential.
love that about myself, though. That's the thing. There's a lot of things that I used to hate about myself. And okay. The whole point of this is like, if there's parts of you that you don't love about yourself and you try to ignore them and pretend that they're not there or don't acknowledge them,
Ooh.
those parts will bite you in the ass
Yeah,
all, all
because
the
they will show up. They
exactly.
like
But
I'm shady. Like you know what I'm saying? Like I'm shady. I can be real shady, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, I
yeah,
need to like take. I need to bring it back. Like that's not all right. But
yeah.
like I, it's you know what I'm saying? Like
No,
you gotta see the whole thing, the whole
and the reason
enchilada.
why it'll bite you in the ass, right, is like, okay, so for me, and I'm still working on this, right? Like, I never come to anything being like, I've figured this out, because who am I kidding? But let's say, like, telling the truth, for example. I have had to learn to love the part of myself that is obsessed with the truth, because when I didn't, I was always second guessing myself, and I was
Mm,
always bottling up my feelings, and I was always not really creating the intimacy and connection that I wanted with people, because I wouldn't be able to tell them the truth of how I was feeling in the moment, or how I felt about something that happened between us or whatever. And so I had a lot of friends. I was, a big party girl in my 20s, and I had a lot of friends, and it seemed like I had all these deep connections, but then always going home still feeling lonely, or being in a room full of people and still feeling like no one sees me, and no one's there. And it's because I wasn't showing up with my whole self. I wasn't loving all of me
mm,
enough to show up and be intimate and be connected and just
mm.
tell the truth.
Right.
And I'm still working on this, because there's still a lot of places where I shut that down.
Yeah.
But in the places where I haven't, those relationships have flourished, in my family, friendships, romantically, all of that. And I've started to attract different people into my life that also want that level of intimacy, because the thing is, not everyone wants that, right? And you can only meet people to the depth that you've gone with yourself, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so learning to love that part of myself that's obsessed with the truth, because I'm like such a, like, that's not true, or like, this is justice, right? Like, that's all, like, that's me. But I really own that now, and I seek that, especially in my friendships and in my family and in my relationships, because that's important to me. And I finally started to like own that part of myself.
It's great.
Yeah. Let's read some comments.
This.
I mean, we got Erica with the hot toddy over here, so I need to just shout that out. So you go, girl. Ooh, and then I love this
So
shout out.
I like to, so you know also, like, so I like to talk about how, right? So how do I love myself, right? So I practical ways. I like so I like so I'll give you an example, real life example. This morning, I've been sleeping very. My sleep's been very scarce because I my body is up. My body's up by like 5:30, 6, 7 a.m. It's like up. It wants to work. So yesterday I went to sleep like at 2 a.m. and the night before, no, yesterday I went to sleep actually like 11. The night before I went to sleep like at 2 a.m. and I was already up by like 6. So I was beat. I was beat yesterday. So yesterday I was beat yesterday morning. So yesterday night I went to sleep earlier. And this morning, I wake up around 7 a.m. I slept okay, decently. And I wake up to like start my day. And I got to the bathroom and I was just like, I was still a little tired. And I was going to start my day. And I asked myself, do I really want to start my day like this? I still feel tired. Like, I feel like I didn't get enough sleep.
Mm,
So I'm like, no, I'm going to go to bed. So I wake up around 9 and I feel so much better. I
yeah,
wake up, I do my work, I do my morning routine, whatever I do. And now I just have it. And this is what I didn't do on Monday. This is what I didn't do on Tuesday. This is what I ignored, right? So
yeah,
yesterday morning I ignored it. I woke up at 6 a.m. or 7, whatever time I woke up, with only like 4 to 5 hours of sleep. And I've been doing that because I'm like in this mental, like, yo, like, hustle and bustle, like I need to like get these things together and put all that shit, which is
yeah.
like, no, it's all noise, right? Because when
And
I
that's ignoring your needs, right? Because the thing that you
yeah,
said, the very practical thing you said is like, what do I need right now? Or like,
yeah,
are you meeting your own needs? And so you were able to have the awareness enough to be like, do I need to push through and
right,
force myself to do something, or do I need more sleep? And I know, I love that you acknowledge too, like, yes, like you're in the privileged position to be able to do that. Not, I mean, especially if you have a demanding job to go to, you can't always just be like, actually, I need an hour of sleep. I mean, or maybe you can, I don't know. I guess there's always possibilities, right? But that's also another conversation. But I think self-love is about paying attention to yourself enough so that you can acknowledge when you're not getting what you need, and that you can acknowledge what you do need and then fulfill that need or ask for support to fulfill that need. But the interesting thing about that is I think not a lot of people, like, we're not taught how to like ask for what we need, and
Yeah.
we're not taught how to identify what we need. And so I think of times where, even when like a loved one passes away, and it's happened to me a lot because I've had a lot of loved ones pass away in the last 8 years. And, people are like, oh, just whatever you need, let me know. And sometimes I'm like, bitch, I don't know what I need. Like, I don't even know who I am, where my
Right.
pants are. Like, I don't like, what do you, I don't know what I need. And so I just want to say, if you're thinking like, I don't know what I need sometimes, that's okay. That's totally normal. Like, a lot of us don't know what we need, but that's where the gap is, right? Like, it's not to beat yourself up that you don't know what you need or how to identify it. The gap is, okay, how can I better learn to be acquainted with my feelings, with what's going on in my body, so that I can identify what I need? And if I can provide it for myself, then I can do that. Or even
Well,
better, if I can ask for support, then I know how to ask for support. And
yeah.
that's why I say, like, I'm a self-love teacher, and sometimes people are like, well, what does that mean? And it's like, well, I teach people this stuff. Like, they don't know how to do it. We
Yeah.
didn't have self-love class in school. So I had to freaking create it because they still don't have it in school.
I I I also think that, like, I think it's a great sentiment to tell someone that whatever you need, like, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
I think it's a great sentiment, but ultimately, like, I don't think, because how do you know that it's not about it's about knowing that that space is safe for you to, like sometimes you just want to break down and that's what you need, but you don't know if that person can hold space for you that way, you
Mm.
know. So it it all depends on the relationship, and and also maybe the sentiment is great, but perhaps actually being with the person and asking them questions and like going down a certain path with them to make space for them, like that perhaps is gonna allow you to get what you need. But in moments like that, it's not clear, so
Yeah.
uh,
Well, a lot of the work that I do is like about, you have the intellectual part, you have the emotional part in your heart, and then you have the physical part in your body, and then you have like the spiritual part, which is like, the metaphysical, right? And the the best way that I can say, like, just to start, so like, if you're someone watching and you're like, I don't know what I need, like, I don't need anything, um a really good check-in is like with your physical body, and also your emotions. Like, your emotions, even if you don't have words for it, sometimes you have physical sensations, right? Because every emotion is attached to a physical sensation. And sometimes it's hard to come up with words. And I actually learned this through therapy. Sometimes it's hard to come up with words because what we're experiencing is pre-verbal. It could be like a trigger of something from before we even learned how to speak. And so we're just having all these sensations in our body and we don't know how to verbalize it. And so that's okay too. It's totally normal. Like, not everyone is so good with words and like eloquent with their feelings. And so it's helped me a lot. Like, let's say I'm in the middle of a difficult conversation with someone, or even if it's not difficult, but they say something that either triggers me or makes me feel some type of way. And all of a sudden I notice I'm like not connected anymore. And I don't really know what to say. Loving myself is asking for that pause. And like, I've had to be like, can we just, can we pause for a second? Because like something is coming up for me, and I'm finding that I'm not as connected to this conversation in this moment. Like, I'm feeling like a heaviness in my chest, or I'm feeling like an anxiety in my body or something like that, you know? And yeah, that's really vulnerable. I'm not saying, like, I'm saying it now, like, but you see, I'm practiced in speaking like that, but that it's not always easy. And especially if I feel like I'm talking to someone that I like, or that I really want to like me, or like an authority figure, or like an older family member who, you know, I still feel like has authority over me and can like spank me and punish me still, you know, it's interesting, the energetic dynamics that we have with different people, but just being able to be like, I'm checking out. So can we pause for a second? And like, I feel like something's happening. Or if I notice that that other person has kind of like checked out or something, I'll be like, what just happened? Like, you just left. Like, what did I say something? You know? So, I mean, and that's self-love. That requires self-love to be able to do that and to acknowledge those things. Or like, if I don't know how I feel, I'm like, there's a heaviness in my chest, or I feel like I can't breathe.
Yeah. No, so that, you know what came up for me when you said that, about requirement for self-love is saying no requires
Mm,
self-love. Like,
that part.
saying no and just be like, no. And like, you don't have to explain it. But even that, like, that takes so much practice, because we tend to like want to explain it as if like to mitigate how someone will feel. It's like, you can't control how someone will feel. And listen, if you hurt someone's feelings, you can definitely apologize, but um it's just, you have the right to say no. I wouldn't want to have someone not want to do something and then do it for me because they felt pressure to say yes. But that's me, right? Like, I've gotten to the point where I wouldn't want you to feel obligated. So like, yeah, no,
Jeremy
I don't.
agrees. Well, I that reminds me of boundaries. And
Yeah.
one thing that I had to learn, because, you know, I had a really interesting is like a very light way to put it, but I had a tumultuous childhood.
Mm.
And I had a, you know, big family on both sides. So even when it was good, you know, it's easy for a child to feel ignored or neglected, because with such a big family. And like boundaries were like non-existent. Like, I think
Mm.
big families can kind of have like codependent tendencies. It's just
Ooh,
everyone, like, there's no boundaries, there's no privacy. And
that's another episode.
I know it is. It totally is. But what I'm getting to is,
Yeah,
I,
we'll definitely talk boundaries.
yeah,
We got to talk boundaries.
I think that's next week. We'll talk
We
boundaries.
talk boundaries.
But because boundaries require self-love. And I had to learn that boundaries are actually normal and healthy. But I grew
Yes.
up learning that boundaries meant you hated your family and you were selfish.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn that healthy people have healthy boundaries.
Absolutely.
That healthy people, like the relationships that I want to be in, are with people that have boundaries. Like hearing you say, I want you to say no to me if you don't want to do it. I mean, you didn't say those exact words, but it's
Yeah,
kind of,
that's,
I
yeah.
don't want you to say yes and feel pressured. And I say that to my friends all the time. I have to remind people, and I wish I didn't have to, but it's because we're conditioned to not have boundaries. But I have to remind people, you can say no.
Yeah.
I'm asking you because I love myself enough to ask you, and
Yeah.
I also love you enough to like
Yeah.
want you to say no if you don't want to. You know,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
it's interesting. Even when I tell people you can say no, I can, like, it's there's such a conditioning.
Yeah. It's automatic. It's automatic.
You're like, no, it's fine. And I'm like, is it though?
Yeah, like, and if it's not, that's okay too. You know what I'm saying?
It's all like, this is all like, it's all okay. I love it. Like, that's okay too, and that's okay too. And that's the self-love piece. I think when we're trying so hard to like be accepted by society or by another person, and we're constantly ignoring our needs, which is like what you opened up with, when we're constantly ignoring our needs, our feelings, our opinions, how, like, all of that, it creates so many fractures in our relationships, in our lives, in our careers, because we have this compounded effect of like ignoring needs,
Yeah.
not saying no. And it compounds until we have so much resentment that we either isolate to the point of like solitary confinement and
Well, yeah,
loneliness,
you're
or
drained.
and
You're
towards the village. Yeah.
you're drained because you're going against your values, because you're going against yourself. You're so like Monday. You need to understand. Like Monday, I was on a downward spiral was because I was not valuing myself, right? So,
Mm.
um, and you must work on the relationship. The most important relationship is with self, because that's what's going to determine every other relationship.
100,000,000,000%.
It is going to determine every relationship. Once you got to treat yourself like you would treat the person you love the most. Like imagine that. Imagine you treating yourself, and you can like, if you want, you can like suspend belief and like act like it's someone else. But imagine treating yourself like the person you love the most. That would be insane. Like, what kind of joy would be available to you if you loved yourself that radically?
I mean, I mean,
I'm smiling just thinking about it. Like, I'm like, oh shit.
that's what I remember. I think it was like in one of like The Power of Now or one of those books, but he was basically, it was this concept of like, when you look in the mirror, like smile and love what you see, because like you're looking at your best friend.
Mm.
And you know what it is? When you treat
Yeah,
yourself and
keep
love
going.
yourself like the person you love the most, or you see yourself as your best friend, you said this on another live where you're like, no one can hurt me. Like no one can
Yeah.
hurt you, because it's like you've got your back so hard that, and I mean, I'm not saying that you'll never get hurt. I mean, this is life,
Yeah.
humans, but no one can hurt you to the point where you're so devastated, because like you got your back. At the end of the day, you're always there for you. You always got your back. You're always there to lift yourself up. Because when we don't, or I'll just speak for myself even, but when I don't love myself deeply, I'm looking for that love. I'm looking for someone else to fill that void.
Mm. Yeah.
Whether it's a friend, whether it's my therapist, whether it's a teacher, an authority figure, a family member, some cute guy, and it's like, whenever I'm going late at night, or I'm invite you listening, watching, to like, whenever you're kind of like, why won't they
Mm-hmm.
fill in the
Well,
blank?
that's the thing. That's what I was talking about. Like, no
Yeah.
one can hurt you without your consent, right? No one can hurt you without you co-signing. Like, you signed that lease to be hurt. You know what I'm saying? So, like, of course, we're going to experience pain. Like in life, we're going to experience pain, but we have the power to transmute pain into incredible joy once we realize that what we've actually been doing has been, like, who we've been being has been what's been causing us pain, right? Because we've actually blunted ourselves from who we really are, and we haven't like really gone out there and like we're trying to like we're trying to like brace ourselves for the pain, where it's like, and what that does is that it also, when you guard yourself from pain, you're also guarding yourself from your highest joy. You're guarding yourself from your highest truth. You're guarding yourself. Pain is part.
Selectively
It's just
numb.
part of life.
Yeah,
Huh?
you can't selectively numb feelings. So
Yeah.
if you avoid deep pain, you're also avoiding like freaking blissful, ecstatic, orgasmic joy.
Yeah.
Like I like to think of it as like, let's say it's like this piano, right? So imagine there's like this piano, and like I have only this camera. So it's like, I want to be like this, but like it's here.
Right.
And so let's say this is the most devastating pain, and this is like the most ecstatic joy.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to avoid pain, then you're also gonna like avoid that high
Yeah.
level of joy. And
Yeah.
then pretty soon you keep avoiding pain, avoid
You're
until you can
gonna be with
only
one
play,
finger.
until you can only play 2 or 3 keys. And to
I'm
me,
sorry, but that's a funny ass it's funny, but it's I get it. You're cutting you're cutting your range.
The joy of life. You want to play a whole freaking symphony.
The
And
whole
if you want blissful love in your life, blissful romance, ecstatic, orgasmic, whatever, like you've got to be willing to experience the depths and the darkness.
right. So
and that's courageous self-love, to be willing to experience that depth and that darkness. Boom.
all right, so we've been talking for 40 minutes.
We don't always have to say the amount of time. We can just like finesse into be like, so
okay.
wrap up today. If there's any questions, by the way, feel free to put them in the chat, because we're clearly going to wrap this up soon. So ask now or forever hold your peace. What are your final thoughts for tonight, Felix, about self-love?
I think so. I think for so many people, it's very easy to want to know how to do it, right? So like, give me things to do that I can show myself self-love, and it's like, no, that's not. You think you need that, right? So a lot of us also think that I just wanna have this so I can feel like this, and that's an illusion also, because you can have the money, you can have the marriage, you can have everything, and if your thought process is still where you are, you will experience shame, you will experience all those, like you will still be you in a different situation. So you don't want the how you get it. It's really like you're creating life. So think about that. Like, you're literally creating your life. So you don't need to have a how, but you need to understand why you're doing what you're doing and seek clarity for what you're doing, and also become aware of what you, and like own what you're doing. That way you can disown it. That way you can let go of it. That way you can seek to do what your heart desires, and become the person you want to be. So ultimately, that's what you're going to take. That's what you're going to take home, the experience of yourself. So how are you experiencing yourself? Do you want to keep experiencing that, or do you want to experience yourself as loving yourself?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
I love that. It's like, I think we so often we start with the how question.
Yeah.
And I think it's more important to start with the why question, or the why not question. Like, why, or, why do you want to feel what you want to feel? Or why not? Like, why do you not want X, Y, Z? The how is, and I say this all the time, the how is always the easiest part.
It's the last part. It's automatic.
Because the how, it could be automatic, but it could not be. Like, if you weren't how to do something, but the how is a Google, YouTube search away.
Mm-hmm.
And if all we needed was the how, so many people, so many of us would not be as unhappy and as unfulfilled as we are, if all we needed was the how. So you need more than just the how. Yes, the how is needed eventually, but before that, you need like the why, you need the what, you need the clarity, you need the confidence, you need the mindset shift, you need the practices, the habits, right? Because like you said, it's not a one and done, it's a lifestyle, it's a mindset, it's a mastery. It's not, yay, I'm a self-love master. It's, I am practicing self-love mastery. It's a daily thing. It's a minute by minute thing. It's a moment by moment thing.
It's commitment.
It's commitment.
It's a lifelong commitment. And I think that's,
No, go ahead. It's a lifelong commitment. Yeah.
Wait, what were you going to say? I want to make sure. It's a lifelong commitment, and so many people want it in a week or two. And it's a lifelong commitment.
Yeah, you're not going to get it in a week or two. You'll get something in a week or two, but you're
getting something right now. Like, you're getting something anytime. But it's a lifelong commitment, and this is what I learned. You got to look into the future.
Absolutely.
And you got to plan.
And I do believe that the how is important. And I do have a lot of hows, and I also have read a lot of books that have a lot of how. But again, I really want to emphasize the how is not the first step. It's like the last step, and it can be automatic eventually.
Yeah,
Um, and
there's
so,
they
yeah,
say there's a hierarchy from like least importance. It's wait, what is it? Story, state, and the how is strategy, right? So from like so the how is a strategy, and like it's the lowest in the hierarchy, and then it's the story, and then it's the state, right, which is like your beingness.
yeah,
So strategies do matter.
yeah,
um
absolutely.
yeah.
And if you want some strategies and stuff, as I had my world premiere for my new website last week, you can just go to my website, TheAmeliaFortes.com, and you can take a look at that and click the topic that really resonates with you. And there'll be a lot of like free videos, blogs, podcasts, as well as the books that I recommend that have a lot of the how in there. And I, through my work, this is my work. I've developed the how because I think a lot of people don't know how to self-love, and so I've developed a lot of the how to self-love. So I do have that, but I love, Felix, that you always say that's not the first thing. Like when I get on phone calls with people who might want to work with me, they want the how, and I'm like, I'm not gonna fix your life to self-love in a 45-minute phone call. Like that's if we could all do that, I would be out of business. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I love that, and I love that you brought me back to that idea, because I was actually thinking that I was like true, but the thing is that like hows give you, you might not do exactly what the person is giving you, but it gives you an idea, it gives you a model, right? It gives you you can be creative. Maybe you don't do it exactly like that, but you can use that as a mold and like create your own thing with it. So how is important, it's just not the first thing you want to look at.
absolutely. So, thank you so much for being here today. We are on Wind Down Wednesday every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m.
Okay.
Pacific. I have another live coming up on
Whoop,
Friday.
whoop.
The information
Look
is
at that.
here. Friday, May 29th at 1
Cool.
p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. We'll be talking about how to go with the flow featuring Jessica Ruth Shepard. It's basically about how to intuitively go with the flow in your life so that you're doing things that feel good and in alignment. And it actually really like about kind of what you were talking about, like Monday you woke up and you're like, do I force myself to do something? And so
Mm,
I think we've been conditioned to push the rock uphill. And
mm.
I've learned to live a life that goes with a flow, with my flow, my flow, my literal flow, my woman's flow, and my intuitive flow. Um,
Okay.
and it's really wonderful. And a lot of people say like, oh, Amelia, you're really lucky, and how did you get to do that? I mean, I worked to get to this point where I don't need to wake up with an alarm clock, where I don't need to where I make my own schedule. And it wasn't always like that. Those of you that know me, I worked on Wall Street. I absolutely did not get to make my own schedule working on Wall Street. And I remember, actually, for those of you who have done momentum education, when I did my momentum education advanced course, I was like, I do not want to wake up to an alarm clock. I want to create my own schedule. I want to go with my own flow. I want to do things that make me feel passionate and alive. Like I wanted so much more than the box that I was in. And I'm so proud to say that that is what I've created. Like sometimes I sit and I look at my life, and yes, of course I understand that I'm privileged in that way, like you said, Felix, but like I look at my life and I'm like, but I created this. So
Yeah,
I worked
yeah.
hard, and people
No,
that know me, I worked hard to manifest this lifestyle, and I'm so
so
passionate about teaching other people how to do that. And so that's why I wanted to bring that topic to these
yeah.
self-love and quarantine conversations. So on Friday, that's what we're going to talk about: how to go with the flow and how to intuitively live your life in a way that feels good and aligned.
Mm,
So that you feel in aligned activation all the time. You're getting a lot of stuff done, but it feels aligned. It feels good. It feels like right timing, and you don't feel like you're pushing the rock up the hill. So I'm really excited about that. So
oh,
join us live for that. And yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Felix.
I'm sorry. No, it's just, I know we could talk forever, but yeah, like more, just because you're busy doesn't mean you're like productive. It's not like, just because you're wasting time doesn't mean, like, just because you're working doesn't mean you're making progress, right? So there are things that you may have blind spots and you're not really breaking through. You're not really getting what you like. It doesn't. I guess what I'm trying to say is you can be moving a certain direction, but be going the wrong way based on relative to where you want to go, right? So just because you're moving forward doesn't mean you're moving the right way. That's all I'm saying.
Or just because you're moving, I'll say,
Yeah,
like, because if
yeah.
you move forward, that could be the right way. Just because you're moving, I think we
Well, you
like,
can move forward in many different
yeah,
ways.
I think we like to just keep moving, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that doesn't mean, yeah, exactly. So you want to be moving in the right direction, in the right way, in the right alignment, in the right flow for you. So that's what Friday is going to be all about. The information is right here on this banner. If you go to my timeline, you'll be able to see the announcement for it, and you can click get reminder, and that way you will get a notification when we go live on Friday. And as always, every Wednesday night, me and Felix right here, Wind Down Wednesday. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
have a good night.
Check some comments here. Okay, wonderful. Yes, I love it. Busy doesn't mean you're valuable. I love that. Sitting in silence can be productive.
Absolutely.
Jeremy.
Can be more productive sometimes.
Erica's been alone since mid-March, but she's settled in now with her hot toddy. Hell yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and we will see you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.